London Playwrights Festival. It's really lovely to see so many of you here today. I'm Kimberly Andrews, I'm co-founder of London Playwrights, and this is Emily Glaze, our literary associate. London Playwrights is a resource for emerging playwrights in London and beyond. We started back in 2013 as a blog with the aim of putting all of the information and opportunities playwrights need into one place, with the aim of making things more accessible for emerging writers. And since then we've branched out into workshops, online resources, development schemes, and things like this festival you're seeing today. There's a QR code for the programme. If you access that, it will tell you all the information about the creatives tonight, and also some information about the work we do as well. And we've also got a crowdfunding campaign running to support the festival, and we're not quite at our target yet, so we really would appreciate any support you can give us towards that. I'll hand you over to Emily now, who'll tell you a bit more about the plays you're watching tonight.
Hi everyone, so I came on board the Play Club programme just this year, but the real brains behind the project is our very own George Bailey, who is our technician this night and our all has this week, along with how he's filming, so huge thank you to all their hard work for that. So Play Club was originally a programme for writers, and we all came together and we read published plays, started a couple of years ago, and we gave them the opportunity to write a play in response, so a short 10-minute play inspired by the themes, ideas in these published plays. But this year we decided to use our very own London Playwrights members' plays as a set reading text to inspire our writers. Received some amazing short 10-minute plays, and we selected 3 to go alongside our 3 main reading texts. So tonight you will be seeing Mum by the amazing Emma Dawson, followed by The Kaki Bandit by Toby McShane. So without further ado, here is Mum. And I hope you enjoy the show.
Okay, I'll start with Vassie. You're the first person to hear most of this. Are you ready? Sitting comfortably? You see, there's a tradition at my company that whenever somebody leaves, they have a leaving do at the pub called the Tup. I've always known about it, but I've never actually been invited. But Ahmed invited everybody to the implementation. And the thing is, I only rave the classics because modern fiction is hogwash, and one of my favourites has always been Pride and Prejudice. And at work, there's this man. He's called Vassie, and he looks just like what I've always imagined Mr. Bingley would look like. And I realised that about a month ago. And Mr. Bingley's my favourite. And Vassie would be at the drinks. I couldn't wait to tell Mum. Vassie stopped at my desk recently to ask how I was doing, and I'll finally get the chance to talk to him away from the office, which means that things that never seemed possible in a million years are just falling right into place. And
this party? That doesn't sound like a plan.
What's wrong with it?
I just don't think you'd enjoy yourself with all those drunk people. What do you want to watch tonight?
Pride and Prejudice is on BBC One.
I fancy a bit of Fawlty Towers.
And I will enjoy the leaving do.
Look, what you need to try to understand is that I'm only wanting to keep you safe.
But that's enough, Mum.
You don't always make the best decisions.
I'm going to the leaving do. End of story. And then she ignored me for the rest of the evening. She was still sulking the next day, and she had a pop at me whenever she could, but I let it all pass by. Another argument and she might talk me out of it. I just don't think she understands how much going means to me. But I understand her. She worries, then she panics, and then she doesn't mean what she says. After all, I'm all she has in the world, and she would protect me to her last dying breath. And if she buggered off like my dad, then what would become of me? You see, my dad went when I was 3 and Emmy was 5. I don't remember him, of course, but Mum says one day he flipped out of nowhere and left. Not much of a loss as far as I'm concerned. I picked out my outfit for the party a week before, and then I preened and pampered for a whole 20 minutes on the big day. I'm not very good, but I did my best. Mum took one look at me at breakfast, toasted Marge because she's mad at me, and got that smirk on her face.
Do you know what you look like?
All the girls in the office wear dresses this length, all shorter. Anyway, you don't know what people wear. You don't know.
I know what you're up to, Edie. Running after boys. I know how you...
Mum, I'm going to be late for work. worn my outfit to work, and I soon realised that I'd forgotten that people brought their outfit in a bag to get changed into later. It's just how it's done, so I felt a bit stupid. But I reminded myself that tonight was the night, and then I could say sod it to doing the right thing. At leaving time, I sort of attached myself to a group of people from my team, saying, "Do you mind if I join you?" And they didn't say no, so we walked over to the tub together. I got a lemonade, which I noticed nobody else ordered. They didn't say anything either, so that was fine. But I couldn't find Vassie anywhere. I was getting really frustrated and generally bored of small talk when he walked in. He was pretty drunk and came in with his closest group of friends, though everybody likes him, let's be honest. But he's often seen around the office with Orla, Dakshita and Samantha. And I'm certain that it's not at all romantic because I watch him like a hawk. And he doesn't ever touch them or laugh at everything they say. And I overheard Christina tell Necdeem that Vassie went through a breakup recently. So I have it on good authority that he's single. "Oh, you finally made it!" And he smiled the most wonderful smile.
Yeah, we went to the Oyster Shack first.
I've never heard of it. Oh, I've not been. I'll have to go someday. And I was just about to ask him how his day was when Samantha grabbed his arm.
Come on, we're getting a table.
And he smiled at me. I'm certain it was sarcastically, and let himself be dragged away. I decided she was just being friendly. People grab their friends all the time. And, oh, probably. I would do a lap of the pub and then I would find Vassie. I was about to give up when I found them in a little nook that I'd missed. And Maya was there, so it was even better because it wasn't like I was invading some sort of exclusive friendship group thing. Not that it's really in the spirit of work drinks, sitting in a corner with your close friendship group and refusing to let anyone else approach your special circle. You're supposed to mingle, speak to people that you never talk to. "Do you mind if I join?" And Vassie got everyone to nudge along. They were talking about someone I'd never heard of, maybe a famous person, or a friend outside of work. But then they started discussing some new adaptation I hadn't seen of Sabrina the Teenage Witch. I absolutely love Sabrina. My favourite character is Aunt Zelda. I've dressed up as her for Halloween every single year. My mum says it's from more like when I was 6, but I think I have these memories from when
Siggy, do you smoke?
No.
Oh, well, don't feel like you have to stand out here breathing in all our fumes.
I don't mind. Although it actually was really disgusting. And I wanted to ask, weren't they afraid of getting cancer? They were talking about their favourite drinks and I said, "I like lemonade." And that didn't really get much of a response. And to be honest, I didn't know half the drinks they were talking about anyway, so I just listened and smiled. And suddenly somebody said,
"Spoons!"
and then Samantha grabbed my arm.
Edie, sweetie, I'm so sorry, but we all want to talk about some private things. You know, just our group. Is that okay? You can go back to the party, right? Have a great night, sweetie.
She did a little wave at me, and I watched her join the group, and none of them, let alone Vassie, realised I wasn't with them. I wish I could pull her hair out. But then I realised I wasn't going to get Vassie on my own anyway, and that was the whole point of hanging around, so it was time to call it a night. Maybe it'd be easier to talk to Vassie in the office when he didn't have his group following him all the time. I went for my room, not even stopping to go to the loo, even though I really needed it.
Edie! I've been calling you all evening. I thought you were dead. Open this door. Edie, get out now. I'm not joking. I know you just aren't capable of understanding. You can't help the way you are. You've always been like this. I've given up hope you can change. What did I do wrong with the two of you? And you do know, don't you, Edie, that someone like Vassie would never date you in a million years. I'm sorry, Edie. You didn't behave that well that night, but still, I'm sorry for some of the things I said. I've made you breakfast.
I regretted it too, so I tucked in. It was pancakes today.
I'm obviously just trying to stop bad things from happening, you silly girl. Remember how your sister started? I can't have it happen to me again, Edie.
I'm nothing like Emmy. It won't happen again. Promise.
You know, I don't think I would have gotten over losing your dad or your stepdad if it wasn't for my shining star.
Stepdad turned up when I was 13 and I pretty much hated him on sight. I was devastated the day that she married him. I refused to go to the wedding. It caused a right stink. He was a really keen tennis player and they got back from the wedding and found that I deflated all of his balls. Around 70 of them, and spread them all over the bedroom floor and across their bed, and he fell over like that. And it was the funniest thing that Emmy and I had ever seen.
That's illegal.
Get stuffed.
That was brilliant.
She distracted me by playing S Club 7 very quietly. They'd broken up by then, but I didn't ditch them like everyone else did. And when they'd gone out, Emmy put on her orange bridesmaid's dress back on and did herself walking sullenly up the aisle, stepdad nearly dropping the ring, and finally, the piece de resistance, stepdad dancing.
Oh, my eyes, my eyes.
Stepdad finally went after Mum refused to kick me out when I turned 18.
You spend more time with her than you do with me. It's creepy. All my friends agree.
Like we hadn't heard that one before. I mean, actually, what's actually wrong with a mother and daughter not loathing each other for once in the history of humanity? Anyway, she absolutely refused to do it, no matter what he tried. Whining, then threatening, and then whisking her off to candlelit dinners. Or he'd get me on my own.
Don't you see you can have such a good life if you were free?
Eventually, off he buggered and good riddance. But for 3 years after he left, he'd still call Mum up every Christmas.
Darling, ditch the bitch and come live the high life with me in London. We could go dancing by the Thames every night.
She was never tempted, to say the least. Though occasionally, when she's in a foul mood, she says,
They both left me because of you. And now I'm all alone.
and then she cries. I used to believe it and feel horrible, but now I think that maybe Mum and the husband's had a hand in it too. And I say so, which stops the tears like that. But then I remind her that she isn't alone. I'm here. And sometimes she hugs me and tells me that she doesn't regret a thing. With stepdad gone, Mum told me that I had to start contributing financially. So I got a job at a lampshade company. I didn't have a bank account, so it went into Mum's to save the hassle. And she was so happy we were secure that she bought me this beautiful star.
You know, Edie, I don't think I would have gotten over losing your dad and stepdad if it wasn't for my shining star.
It takes a weight off my mind that we've made up. She gets like this, absolutely flipping mad, and then it goes like that. And whatever it was doesn't matter anymore. She never means it. It's just that life treated her badly. And I know what you're probably thinking, but most people can't rise above it smelling like roses. And the people who say it's all so simple, well, they're as thick as two planks, and that's the truth. See you for more Faulty Towers tonight. While I was at work that day, it happened. I found her partway under the dining table. It was really heavy, and I think she was trying to put it closer to the wall, and she'd gotten halfway when she had a heart attack. The paramedics were kind. I'd stupidly hoped that they could make her breathe again, and they knew exactly what I was thinking. They asked if there was someone I could call. And they phoned the police because it was unexpected and the coroner came to take her blood. I emailed work to tell them that I wouldn't be in for a while, and then I curled up in Mum's armchair and pretended that she was hugging me. still smell her. Silence was terrible. I wish I hadn't argued with her over a stupid leaving do. I didn't understand myself why I had to upset her, why I couldn't let myself off the hook for that. I didn't get to say sorry. And we could have spent her last evening together. Instead, I was in a stupid pub. If I just turned down the invite, if I could change what I did, because she told me not to go, didn't she? I thought that I knew better and I wouldn't listen, and now look where I've landed. That was how I ended up seeing stepdad again. When I saw him at the crematorium, my first instinct was to run away. But of course I couldn't leave, so I tried to blink the tears back into my eyes because I would not let him see me cry. I was pretending not to notice him afterwards when he sidled up and presented me with Mum's will. The only consolation is that I know she didn't disinherit me deliberately, though she hated anything to do with death. I'm sure she would have changed it if she'd known the truth.
I thought you knew. It was what she wanted, so that I could take care of you if she died before you two turned 18. But then she brutally dumped me, as you'll well know.
She never would have changed it on her own. She couldn't even watch Kipper and the Corpse episode, and you know how much she loved Fawlty Towers.
I didn't make her do anything. Your mum was sometimes so fucking pig-headed, and this is just so typical of her.
He told me he'd give me my pick of 10 keepsakes if I was nice to him. I was going to turn him down. I really wanted to, but I couldn't bear the thought of not having any memories of her. Still having to accept things from him. When I picked Mum's occasional table, he said...
Pick something else instead.
You said 10 things!
It'll be one thing with that attitude.
I only got through it thinking about how Emmy and I used to take turns weeing in his 2-in-1 shampoo. I remember lots of fights about money when I was a teenager, but it's all gone downhill since then. Now, even things worth a tenner are being closely examined with glee before he puts them on eBay.
I'm sorry. I know it was your childhood home, but the will is legally binding, and I actually have a bit of a cash flow problem, so when's the soonest you can move out? You're crazy, you're a psycho mum.
I could see he was considering having a pop at me, but then he legged it. He's not been back since. I did try to sort it out. I screamed down the phone to his lawyer. I left voicemails. I opened my own bank account. But I couldn't change the fact that the will freely left everything to him. And then I got a call from an unknown number one night.
I'll report you to the police for assaulting me if you don't play ball. I have your neighbours as witnesses.
I bet he did. He deserved it. But I didn't think the court would definitely see it that way, so I googled my sister. LinkedIn said that she was working as a personal assistant at a clothing company called Lost Poodle, which was 30 minutes away by bus. After 8 calls, I got through to an actual human being, and after a lot of waiting, Emmy came on the line. She started crying when she realised it was me. But she stopped as soon as I told her that Mum had died and stepdad had taken everything, and I needed to move in with her. She said that she'd have to ask her partner Fabian first. She asked me what I said to the receptionist. She called back 7 hours later, saying that he said yes. It began when stepdad moved in and Emmy started dressing differently. Leather jackets. She got a new group of friends and she told Mum she was going to a French film club after school every evening when actually she was going to see them. I missed watching Sabrina with her. After the wedding, she started staying out later, and eventually it was all night. Of course, stepdad lost it. After the 3rd time, they turned out our room while we were at school, and they found 14 bottles of vodka. I came home and there was something funny on her bed, and it was only when I got closer that I realised it was all of Emmy's clothes, cut into pieces and dumped there. When she saw what he'd done, she didn't react. She just walked out and didn't come back for 2 weeks, and after that, She wouldn't talk to me. And then the police brought her home one evening because she'd been drinking alone on the common. She spat in stepdad's face and missed, but he threw her into the wall anyway. I should have realised that Emmy was selling her stuff when her belongings started to gradually vanish. I thought she was removing them so that he couldn't do anything else, and then I found a note on a bed. Don't try to find me.
You're not to contact her, Edie. She doesn't want to be in this family anymore. If I ever get wind of you trying, you know what I'll do.
And I followed it until now. I slept on their sofa at first, but it gave me the worst backache. So Emmy bought me a blow-up bed. It isn't better. I didn't bother telling her this at the time, because it's not like it's not like she's going to put a bed in the middle of her lounge for me. The lounge is tiny. The flat is tiny. Every morning, I'm woken up at 5 a.m. when Fabian gets up and goes to the gym and comes in to have his morning snack instead of eating actual breakfast like a normal person. Mum would say...
It's like he's refitting the kitchen every sodding morning.
Emmy is still drinking every evening that she and Fabian are home, which isn't very often recently. They polish off a fair few glasses between them. I've yet to see an evening go by without this essential affair. And then when they have their Friday night dinner parties and I'm put in the corner of a table stuffed full of couples, I find that you could certainly knock 10 elephants stone cold with what they get through in a night. There they are, talking rubbish, telling intimate secrets that they've never told anyone before, crying, throwing up on one occasion. I find the whole thing exhausting. It's also not okay if you curl up in a corner and doze. They are in your bedroom after all. Not that they care. And you definitely must not creep into your sister and Fabian's bed on the way back from the loo. It took them nearly an hour to realise where I was gone, and when Emmy found me, she grabbed my blow-up bed and threw it at me.
You really embarrassed me yesterday, Edie. I had to pretend you were sick, and none of them bought it. They were all exchanging sarcastic looks. You should go out. You're clearly not having a good time.
I'll just sit in your bedroom then. I'll be quiet.
Just find a pub.
One Thursday, 4 months after Mum died, I noticed Vassie standing, framed by the light of a window. I'd been back at work for 2 months, in a fog, not really noticing anyone or anything. Emmy and Fabian basically frog-marched me back to work because I got an email hinting that I might lose my job. I realised that Vassie didn't look like Mr. Bingley at all. There was something more Darcy-ish about him. But to my surprise, I didn't mind. And then I wondered, could it be a sign from Mum? I know it sounds a bit unusual, but might she be saying that it was okay that I went to the leaving do? That I shouldn't give up now? After thinking it over for a week, I formed a plan. I would buy a new dress, because the last one clearly didn't work, and I would give it another go. Fabian had at least been nicer. Recently he took me for coffee.
You know you can talk to me anytime.
I won't, but I felt so relieved because if he likes me, then he'll let me stay. So far, I keep putting off being shown spare room by pretending that I haven't saved up enough for a deposit. It hasn't been that long, but sometimes me and Emmy have a lovely time. She took me shopping 2 weeks ago and got me a rainbow dress, which could work for my plan for Vassie.
I just want to look after my little sister.
Well, I knew what it was really about. I could tell she thought my clothes were hideous from the sideways looks she gave me when I first moved in. But after she'd chosen a few more things, we went for a coffee. And I'd never been in a Costa before, and you know, it was actually much classier than I expected from Mum's descriptions. The caramel chocolate shortbread was very good. And I told Emmy all about Vassie and how tomorrow I was planning on wearing the dress and asking him out, and she got so excited. I had to tell her and Fabian all about him over dinner, and they agreed he was exactly what they wanted for me. She was getting used to me, and suddenly I felt like everything might be all right between us. Hi, Vassie. How was your weekend? And he kind of looked surprised and then told me about his cousin's wedding. Apparently it was really stressful because his cousin nearly jilted her fiancé and the family had to bully her into going through with it. I've not actually been to a wedding, but I'd love to go one day. Do you want to go for a coffee with me?
Sorry, I'm so busy right now. Just snowed under deadlines.
Oh, okay. Oh, Lassie. I don't know what I did wrong.
Maybe he's genuinely busy. You should ask again, because that'll tell you how he really feels. But the important thing is to be totally casual. Pretend you don't care that much.
When it was time, Emmy said that I should wear a skirt and t-shirt that she picked out for me.
Remember not to go too overboard.
Hi, Vassie. Did you have a good evening?
Fine. How was yours?
Good! I read Pride and Prejudice. Would you like to go for dinner with me?
Oh, sorry. I've got a lot on right now.
Bye. Maybe Mum hadn't forgiven me after all.
Did you ask like we said?
Emmy, I tried my best.
I don't want you to call me Emmy anymore. Everyone calls me Amelia now. It was only ever you and Mum.
Well, I'll try, but I think of you as Emmy and
Try harder.
I did try. But it wouldn't fix in my brain, and after she went off the handle a few times, I settled on avoiding saying her name altogether.
Don't I have a name now? I can't believe you.
Her and Mum weren't so different, really. But I kept that to myself.
Edie, we've been talking.
Yes, we've talked and we've decided that you have to start looking for a room tomorrow. You knew that you couldn't stay forever. The flat's too small.
Emmy, I can't.
It's not negotiable, so don't try. Just look and see what you find.
Next day, they made me go on spare room. After 3 weeks of not finding anything remotely okay, they started taking it in turns to sit with me and scroll through the day's options. Well, I'm not living there. And then they'd say,
You can't expect the perfect roommate.
I think you're being a bit judgmental.
at that point, I pretended that I hadn't heard them because they aren't in my situation and they aren't capable of understanding. And they soon got really wound up by me saying no to everything. But then, when I was expecting to be ambushed, Emmy said she was taking me out to dinner. I hoped that it would be the end of it. I'd had a great idea. We'd move into a 2-bedroom flat, split the rent 3 ways, and this time my room would ideally be on the upper floor, so they'd hardly know I was there. And if they got a flat with a second bathroom, an ensuite to my room, then I could be cocooned up there and during their dinner parties. They'd get used to me.
Edie, I asked you to dinner because I have to talk to you.
Before you start, can I say something?
No, just listen. This is really hard to say, but you're ruining my relationship by living with us. I've been trying to avoid this. Believe me, I have, because you've had too much shit in your life recently. I didn't want to add to it, but this isn't working. Fabian doesn't want to have sex with you in the room next door. You never go out. We need to be on our own.
But, Amelia, this is exactly what I wanted to talk to you about because I have a solution. Because the problem's with me sleeping in the lounge. The flat's too small.
Do you know that we argue about you all the time?
Yeah, but if you just let me tell you.
Fine. I really didn't want to have to say this, but fine, okay, I will. Fabian's going to move out if I don't get you to leave. And he might not come back. I've thought about it and I understand where he's coming from. I can't lose him. It's been 8 months.
You're choosing him over me. I'm your sister.
I saw your bank statement. You've got way more than a deposit. You need to go. You're a grown-up, Edie. You know what? This isn't a discussion. I'm going now. Okay, Edie. The only filters we're using today are your price limit and if the flat doesn't look like a shithole. And you have to set up 3 flat viewings and pick one and a backup, okay?
I don't want to do it if I can't say no.
Tough. All you've been saying is no. You need to find somewhere ASAP. I'm picking them if you don't.
You don't need to come with me.
Yeah, nice try.
Nobody answered the door at flat number 1. When we eventually got to number 2, Emmy started really freaking out, like tapping on the window. She even knocked on the neighbour's door, which went down really badly because they didn't even know them. And then we went late to the last flat, which was closest to home. This one was 3 girls, and we talked for hardly any time before one of them said,
Can I cut to the chase here? We need someone to move in and pay the rent by Thursday, or we have to cover it and we can't. So if you could do that, we want you to move in.
I could feel Emmy getting really excited beside me, so I said, I'll need an hour to think about it. I'll message you.
You'd be stupid not to move in with them. They seem so nice and they like you too.
They want my money.
Of course they do, but they wouldn't have asked you if they didn't think it could work. Please, please, Edie, just pick them and let's get this over with.
I was sick to the back teeth of Emmy and Fabian. So when we got home, I messaged the girls to say yes. I got such a happy message from the older one. Yes, the older one. You, Wendy. Sorry, you don't want me to talk about you like that. Okay, fine. It was just how I thought about you at the time. I'm practically your age anyway, and I was thinking in relation to Misha and Sana. I moved in the next day. Emmy and Fabian thought it was for the best under the circumstances. They pretended it was to reassure the housemates that they wouldn't need to pay for my room, but it obviously wasn't. Emmy said we'd still do something for my 30th birthday next month, and I told her to get stuffed. So by the time they dropped me off, they weren't speaking to me. I thought I'd finally found my sister. At the very least, I thought she would let me stay because she used to love me so much. She really did. But she left me before, and she's doing it again, and I can't forgive her for doing it twice. I needed her. I tried. I texted Emmy saying Mum would be so ashamed of you, blocked her number and went into my new home. The flat wasn't pretty. It had a tiny galley kitchen and severe mould, and the lounge had been turned into a bedroom, so the dining table was in the corridor. You had to slide yourself sideways past it, and I kept walking into it when I wasn't paying attention. It was amazing how the 3 of you lived together in basically silence. I soon realised that I had so many questions and nobody to ask. You would talk me through some things if I could grab you, but you were home the least. Sana and Misha would just stare at me when I asked about paying council tax or renters' rights or how to join our local library. Misha would occasionally sidle up to me and say something like,
Do you know where my spatula is, Edie? Is it in the left drawer or the right?
Right?
Right. It's not here.
No, I mean left.
Oh, left. Oh, yeah. Here it is. Thank you so much.
I wish 1,000 times a day that I could talk to Mum. I don't tell people about her because I'm worried I would stop coping. I don't feel like I'm quite myself without her. It's like half my personality's gone in one fell swoop. And she was right about Emmy. She is a drunk. It'll end in tears and liver problems. One day, you knocked on my door, Wendy, and told me that Misha was asking those questions deliberately. So I should say, I'm busy now, and walk off it if she did it again. You said that she made drama at every opportunity. Also, I didn't need to ask them any more questions because I could ask you instead, and if you were out, I should write it down and slip it under your door. So you started helping me. You brought me a cupcake with a candle for my 30th birthday. You talked a lot about people's crutches. It made me think about how Mum's crutch was TV, and I always wondered how she could bear to watch it for that long. I think I could explain to her, now that I've seen more of the world, really what she was missing. I understood why she wanted to stay away. Who would want to deal with people in general? but I don't think she understood how much you can live in their world and still cocoon yourself away. Sometimes it can actually be quite interesting to see what people are wearing or what they bought or what book they're reading on the bus. I've discovered how lovely it is to linger a bit rather than rushing home all the time. And as I was rereading Pride and Prejudice, and I suddenly realised that Vassy wasn't like Mr. Darcy at all. The book shows that Mr. Darcy is, in fact, a really kind person. But Vassy isn't. He hasn't talked to me since, not even to say hello. Anyway, I know exactly who Vassy's like. Mr. Wickham. And you know how falling in love with him turns out in the book, don't you? Maybe I had a lucky escape. I started having longer conversations with you, Wendy. I'd ask questions just to get you to hang out sometimes. There were certain topics that you loved to go into, like your relationship with your parents, your shithead ex-girlfriends, your words, not mine, and being treated like a second-class citizen. I told you, as briefly as possible, that Mum had died. I told you that my sister had kicked me out. I told you that I felt like I was vanishing sometimes, and turned it into a conversation about discrimination against women. I think you noticed, but you didn't say anything. You were happy to wait. But then after 5 or 6 months of us chatting whenever we got the chance and me feeling disappointed every time you had to go, you proposed that we have a standing date every fortnight to watch a film. I was so happy you asked me. We settled for the only gap in your schedule, Wednesdays, odd week, because you did badminton and bouldering and tap dance, and you were part of 2 book groups and another one that you described as female group therapy, and I was never sure if that was a joke. Was it? And we watched so many amazing films together that I hadn't seen before. My favourites were about women who didn't take things lying down. You bought me the Pride and Prejudice TV show that Mum would never let me buy, and I realised in a burst how wonderful Elizabeth Bennet is. I never understood her before, but now I think I'd actually quite like to be her. Or a bit more like her, anyway. And you kept trying to lend me modern fiction, and I'd say, no thanks. But I finally gave in and tried it, and it knocked me for 6. You were right. Do you know that I hardly go to the library anymore? I was so happy when you quit badminton. That meant that we could hang out once a week. And then, one Saturday, you asked me what was the most significant moment in my life, good or bad. No one had ever asked me something like that before. And I thought of the leaving do, because that was when I left Mum and everything changed, but I didn't want to just tell you about that. This time, I wanted to tell you absolutely everything. And you smiled and said I could define moment however I wanted, and you'd expect nothing less of me, which I liked. Okay, I'll start with Vassy. You're the first person to hear most of this. Are you ready?
We're going to have a quick scene change for the Kaki Bandit by Toby McShane. So bear with us while we do that, and then we'll be having a Q&A with the incredible Adam Welsh from Divergent Talent Group. So don't go anywhere, there's some really exciting things following.
Mum met Dieter on Match.com when she was going through a period of not wanting to be alone. They bonded over their shared passion for botany. I learned sometime after the fact that he opened the conversation with the line, "Are you a eucalyptus because you've met my qualifications?" Koalas are one of only 3 mammals, the other 2 being the greater glider and the ring-tailed possum, that can survive on a diet of eucalyptus. That is because eucalyptus is extremely fibrous, very low in nutrition, and incredibly poisonous. Yeah, the koala doesn't give a shit, which I sort of admire. Had I known that this was the opening line he thought befitting of my mother, I'd have nipped the whole thing in the bud a lot sooner. the beginning, he was a mystery man. 11 digits in the phone and the incorporeal cause of Mum's stifled laughter as she sat grinning at the kitchen table long after dinner, smiling at her messages. I knew it was either some new maverick suitor or she'd started rewatching Michael McIntyre clips again on YouTube, which was a period I'd rather not have revisited. Mum has the same password for every account on every website she's ever made. I've told her that this leaves her extremely open to online attacks, but Mum's under cybercrime is being hit round the back of the head by a laptop by a man with a ski mask and a loot sack as he steals her purse. The benefit of it, however, means that I have access to it all. Normally I'm not much of a snoop, but the incessant pinging of her notifications was really starting to piss me off, and I felt entitled to get to the bottom of it. Logging onto the website, I prayed I wouldn't be faced with a guy posing with a freshwater trout as a profile picture. I didn't need some wannabe dad convincing my mum that a weekend's fishing in the Cotswolds would be a good way to bond. My first thought was relief. No trout, no stupid hat. My second thought was Dieter? This guy looked like the human equivalent of a dead leaf. He was waspish and had bristly ginger hair that he likely described as strawberry blonde. He had small rectangular glasses perched on the end of his nose and a smile that made him look incredibly pleased with himself, despite the fact that all he was doing was standing in the doorway of his dorky-looking conservatory. Maybe that's what he was so chuffed about. That he felt he'd achieved something in life because he had a pointless glass room stuck on the edge of a house. Side note, conservatories are a legitimate way for people to express their voyeuristic proclivity in a society that, under any other guise, deems it improper. Anyone who has one is trying to tell you they like to be watched. This theatre did look like the kind of guy who would use a koala-themed chat-up line unironically. Mum is very trusting with people she meets on the internet. She's quite happy to chat away without doing the level of prior research that I would consider mandatory. She takes people at screen value. So I did the research for her. Now, Match.com doesn't give out surnames, but it does ask each of its users to sign up under a username, which is then visible on their profile page. Dieter's username was Kaki_Bandit_5. Kaki is a small orange fruit. It is popular in most of Far East Asia and is often referred to as the Oriental persimmon. Maybe Dieter made a living by stealing them from the trees of Chinese farmers. His username suggested that perhaps there was a Kaki Bandit quintet, of which Dieter was the fifth and final member. I thought if I trawled through Match.com long enough, I would find the other four and uncover their clandestine online hangout. Without expecting to find much, I typed my only lead, his username, into Google. Here's a breakdown of the subsequent results I found. An advert for a brand called Bandit Kaki suede shoes by a footwear company in Paris. The advert was in French. The SoundCloud page of a rapper called Kaki Rasputin. His one and only song was called Meth Head Melancholia, which I listened to and didn't really like because I thought the dark days he was describing weren't really behind him.
I'm so tired of this nonsense. Let me once, let me twice, how you want.
An extract from a book retelling Thai folklore for a Western audience. This particular story was about a woman called Nan Kaki, who was a consort in the palace of a dusty old king called Fromatan. Kaki was considered both beautiful and promiscuous, despite the fact that she was actually coerced, blackmailed, or forced into having sexual relations with various ill-intentioned men. In light of this discovery, I started to reassess my initial interpretation of Dieter's Kaki Bandit moniker. In modern Thai slang, Kaki carries negative connotations and is a derogatory term for a wanton or profligate woman. Dieter was cruising dating sites, bragging non-consensual acquisition of such women. He also owns a conservatory. The icing on my investigative cake, my Woodward sponge, my Bernstein Battenberg, the piece of evidence that would kill this burgeoning nightmare quicker than a grizzly drifter kills a saloon proprietor in the shootout of a John Wayne Western, was a YouTube thumbnail. About a third of the way down the page. It came just after the suede shoes, the reflective wrapper, and the Thai folk tale. It had an innocuous title. The kind of thing you'd pass over 1,000 times and only stop to watch at 3 in the morning when you couldn't sleep. It was called Plants Have Feelings. Watch Mine Cry. The video was uploaded by the Kaki Bandit. Naturally, I clicked on the link.
Hi everyone, me again. So, these are my plants. I've got one in particular in mind that I am going to abuse. See what I can. Oh, you're a stupid plant. Stupid plant. You are utterly stupid. And I can make you cry. I'm going to make you cry. I'm going to make you cry.
Yeah, sure. We're a talent agency. We represent neurodivergent actors, creatives and writers exclusively. We're sort of in a pre-launch phase, so we don't fully exist yet, although we are trading and we're negotiating contracts on behalf of our clients. The whole purpose of the organisation is, of the business, is to negotiate better contracts for neurodivergent people, to raise the visibility of neurodivergence and the profile of it, and to sort of champion neurodivergent talent as something that's integral to the ecology of the creative industries as a whole, which seems obvious, but it's like the culture that we seem to have set up is one that isn't often neurodivergent friendly. In fact, it's quite the opposite. It's quite hostile to people who are neurodivergent. I was diagnosed with ADHD last year, although it's something I've always lived with, and so I guess the agency was born out of trying to maybe sort of correct some of the things that I'd experienced in my career. I used to be a writer, but other people are much better at that.
What did you think of Emma's play?
I thought it was fantastic, yeah.
You have to say that.
I thought it was really clearly defined, and I thought the protagonist was infinitely likeable, and I felt that there was a sort of, I thought there was a really sort of humane story at the heart of it that I really identified with, so I thought it was really well conceived. Yeah.
Thank you.
Yeah.
It's funny you say that, because when we first started talking about the play, I said, I love her. She's adorable and terrible and hilarious and a great mess. And Emma was like, yeah, a lot of people said that she's really unlikable. I was like, rude. Because I really resonated with her in a lot of ways. It's a little bit embarrassing.
But I love her deeply too. I watch you and just think, I love her so much. But yes, I've had a lot of readers whose initial reactions was that she's a very dislikable character. They wanted her to, play more to the audience. I think honestly they wanted her to be more neurotypical, which she can't be. So
It's not happening.
Yeah, I mean, I also don't think that characters always have to be likeable in order to be valid characters. I think.
It's not perfect.
No, I mean, I think sometimes the more interesting characters are ones that are dislikable, and like, you know, you have to interrogate what you like about characters and what you don't. I think.
Yeah, I think the honesty was really, I think that's what made her even more likeable, really, because there's that kind of honesty there that, you know, isn't always there. So I just found every kind of aspect of her just so detailed and relatable. How did you find playing the role then? Did you really enjoy it?
Yeah, I really enjoyed it. It was really good in the sense that I've read being a niche actor, you get given all of the neurodivergent scripts, and I've read quite a few, and I've auditioned for quite a few, and some of them are downright offensive. Like, you can read it and you're like, oh, you have a son with autism, don't you? Or like, oh, you've never met a neurodivergent person in your life, and you can really tell in a script. It's kind of weird how much you can almost like smell it on it. And this was the total opposite experience of that. I was like, it wasn't played up, it wasn't Sheldon Coopered, she was just existing as a neurodivergent person in a very difficult situation, and clearly surrounded by other neurodivergent people as well that hadn't had their support systems that they also needed. So it felt really real, and it was really nice to just kind of relax into that rather than having to kind of play neurodivergent and just be it. And it was really nice, yeah.
It's amazing to hear. And Emma, did you have any questions for Adam?
Oh yes, I wondered, do you feel like we're at a watershed moment with neurodivergent talent? Do you think we're at a point of
I wouldn't be sitting
change?
here if we weren't. No, I mean, I think you're right, we are. I don't think by any means the work is done. I think we're at the foot of the mountain, so to speak, but I do really see on a daily basis a shift in mindset and understanding and openness towards neurodiversity as a concept. Yeah, I think so. I mean, you know, I had the idea to found the agency, and I didn't fully know how good an idea it was until I did it, because I'm surprised daily on the need for it, and representation sort of in, you know, every sense of the word, you know. Can I ask what your, you know, why you wrote the piece and what your sort of like, yeah, what your intention is with it?
Oh, that's hard. I think I started with the mother-daughter relationship. I was really interested in a relationship where a mum had like imposed a worldview onto her daughter, and the fact that her daughter was living it. I kind of liked the idea of writing about neurodivergence and a person who had been very influenced by their upbringing. So basically, people might see the play and think it was about neurodivergence, but it, you know, obviously a play about she's influenced by so much more than her in other words, she isn't unusual just because she's neurodivergent. She's unusual because of the values that she's been raised with. I also am fascinated by sister relationships, so, and just generally dysfunctional families. But I really
Show me a functional one.
You're right. They're pretty dicey in this play, but
No, I think that really comes across. I think that's really clear in the play, or the writing that we saw tonight. I think it was really beautiful how you know, you don't overstate or, you know, as you're saying, sort of make the neurodivergence the sort of, you know, it's implicit rather than being explicit, and I think that's really creates a really nice tension, you know, makes it more, makes us work harder, which I think is really, really good.
yes, you don't want to make it too easy
No.
for the audience.
But I do, you know, I think it makes it more relatable as well, because I think in a way you sort of, if you aim to do a sort of piece of neurodivergent work, you are immediately sort of ring fencing it and sort of putting it in a certain bracket, and people go, oh yeah, that's over there, that's sort of neurodivergent work, you know. But I think actually what you've created is a character that everybody could relate to, you know, particularly neurodivergent people. Yeah.
Oh, I'm so thrilled to hear you. Yeah, I always ever since she was called Unrelatable, that's been, that's always been like a fear for me behind the play, so it's lovely to hear that.
Well, I think everyone relates to sort of receiving negative feedback in their family situations, or finding themes that recur, and I think that's very, very human and relatable.
Yes, she goes through a lot of universal experiences.
Yeah.
Really.
Yeah, absolutely. It's that very fine line as well between the influence, of the mum and, saying I'm looking out for you, and, those morals that she's picking up, but also controlling as well, manipulative at times. So that came across really nicely as well. Does anyone in the audience have any questions?
I've got a statement.
Well,
I'd just like to say thank you, because I was actually going to bring a friend tonight, and she was reading, and she said to me, "What the fuck's neurodiverse?" A year ago, 2 years ago, before I met Emma, I didn't got a bloody clue. Don't know what all that's all about. But when I read the play, it actually highlighted, what ignorance, like me and so many other people. I didn't realise, there's other stories out there, and you don't realise how some people react in a way that you think, oh, that's a bit odd, or why are they doing this? So I having a statement here by saying, thank you for educating me, because I had, it's really interesting, because you have universal themes here. I mean, especially that's of interest to me, bereavement. Every bereavement is unique. So imagine if you've got other things going on in your life and how you adapt to it. So, I'm totally educated, and I hope yourself included, you give these stories out, because I want to find out more how people live a different life. So,
Thank you.
Thank you, Molly.
Thank you. Was there any other questions or statements? No? Oh.
When did you start writing the play, Emma, and kind of how's the development process been for you?
I started writing it in the summer of 2019, so for the people who work with me, I didn't know Wendy, your finance director, then. I was thinking while I was reading, you think I've named this person after Wendy, which seems a little random, but I haven't met her then. So I started writing it then, and I've written 10 drafts since, so this is obviously a bridge version of real play, is 70 minutes long, so I cut bits out, but 10 drafts, and last year I had 2 Zoom rehearsals with a director. I didn't work with a neurodiverse director at the time, and so this time we decided to do with an all neurodivergent creative team. Actually, as some of you know, my poor director Lotta knows, her housemate came down with COVID yesterday, so she unfortunately had to cancel, and she could not come today to come and rehearse. She miraculously, she told me at 8 p.m, by 11 p.m, she had found me a replacement neurodivergent director, which is amazing. So Lisa Miller came today, and so they co-directed. We had a conversation this morning, and she co-directed. That was the most speedy, perfect networking I've ever seen. I couldn't believe that happened. She even, Lotta was going to read the female parts. We even found another actor, Lauren, who is Lisa's girlfriend. So thank goodness for that. But yeah, more recently the process has been quite stressful. But it happened, and that's fantastic. I'm very happy.
Yeah, it was amazing how it's all pulled together at 11 p.m. last
Yeah,
night.
11 p.m.
We're all
last night.
asleep.
Yeah.
having a good
I
moment.
didn't find out till 9 a.m. I really appreciated it. I was like, I'll give you the email now, there's some good news.
I know.
Like, they're getting my train ready to leave.
I decided to spin it
Yeah.
before we. What's the point of telling you?
I
We
really
have a
appreciated
problem.
that. They're like,
Oh no, we have to keep our star happy.
don't say that. But that's the magical thing of working with a neurodivergent team. They actually think about those things, like the accommodations, because a lot of people would have just gone, right, we need to tell everyone, let's go, rather than thinking about, let's think about how not to spiral each other unless absolutely necessary, kind of thing, and everyone's kind of taking care of each other in a way that's very different to a lot of creative teams I've worked on. So thank you for that.
You're welcome. I was
Feels pretty
totally
safe.
useless last night, but Lexa was fantastic. Slight interaction, thank goodness for her, and I'm so sorry that she can't be here today, but we did, we very much, Lisa directed in her spirit, and I hope I'll be able to work with Lotta in the future.
Yeah, she's brilliant.
Well, it's
great. Well, thank you so much, everyone. And thank you, Adam, for joining us
That's
tonight.
all right.
And thank you, Emma, for sharing this
Yeah,
brilliant
welcome.
play with everyone.
Thank you,
And thank you, everyone, for coming. And as I said before, if you want to find out any information about the creative team, a bit more about Emma, you can scan the QR code and you'll get to view out on